want to address another potential subject to incorporate into the charter, and I'm going to just defer to Mike on this one because it relates specifically to IT.
Yeah, so in going over my notes from prior meetings, I realized one of the things I had mentioned in an early meeting about wanting to address was IT, and then I realized at this point we really hadn't mentioned it at all. So I dropped with everyone just a one-pager with IT, which basically shows the two options to address IT as I see it. The first being the IT function and using almost the city engineer as the engineering function as an example. And this would kind of still exist within the finance section. Or the second option, which is the Title X, would be IT being treated as its own title, similar to almost HR. IT is of utmost importance to the city and one that is likely to just grow over time, given where the world is heading. And I think there's some value in IT being called out as its own section and in its own position, and one that reports to council in a way to let them know what's going on citywide. And also perhaps, while not explicitly stated here, having their own budget and being able to speak to their own budget. Because I think there is, historically, there is some concern that in the past, a finance director, or finance commissioner, I'm sorry, might be less focused on IT and their needs and then kind of what they need for the safety of the entire city. So I think by having their own budget and being their own section, it empowers them in a way that I think they're perhaps required. So I guess the two questions are, one, how might it be handled? And then from there, I guess it's refining either way.
I totally agree, and I'm not opposed to it being in its own section if everybody thinks that makes sense.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I agree that something needs to be done with IT, and I'm not opposed to it having its own section. The needs of IT are growing. The notion of them at least having their own budget and making a requested budget and presenting that to the council, I think is very important. I don't think it should be buried under the finance department or buried into the finance department budget. Cybersecurity is a really big issue. Training employees in IT for cybersecurity issues are real things that are happening. These are expenses that the council should be aware of, that should be planned for. Just everything. IT touches literally everything we do. So at least bringing it to the forefront, the council understands expenses that may need to be planned for. How we do it in the charter, I don't know, but at the very least, there is some power that comes with presenting a budget, your own budget, through a budget workshop. A budget is a planning document. So that's why we wanted to present this to the entire group.
I totally agree as well. I mean, from my point of view, IT is a utility, you know, for the organization, and I think it should be called out. I don't know if what you're suggesting by calling it out as its own title is also saying that it reports differently or not. I don't have a preference about that, but I just think that as a function, it should absolutely be called out.
I was thinking of it somewhat being akin to HR, in the sense that, in the sense that it does serve everyone. IT's history, as I understand it, is with finance because the first computer was to do payroll, and I get that. But
that was a long time ago.
Yes, and the amount that IT does with public safety, with the mayor's office and planning, it touches everyone in a way that putting it under just one department, I see how that could become problematic. And I think Commissioner Madigan has done a lot to empower them and make sure that they get what they need. But I think part of with this document, we want to plan and make sure that those who should be empowered in a certain way are, so that no matter who's in office, that things get done by competent people.
I think throughout our meetings, IT's come up on a number of occasions, and I think there's been a clear consensus on the importance of IT. This really addresses a bit more of the independence of IT as a separate entity and answerable, like HR, city attorney, risk and safety, being answerable to the council. as a body, it is something worth strongly considering.
Yeah,
This is-
and even rec, I know they have a commission, and I know we're looking at putting them in DPW, but they have their own budget. They're before the council, the recreation director is before the council regularly, telling us about programs, presenting his budget, presenting his revenue options, doing an annual report every year. It seems to me that we need to be doing something similar with IT, and they should be there for the entire city, which is why I like that model. Like, we have legal and we have HR. Right now, the head of IT is in the union, though, so making this IT, information technology, its own department, but the person who leads it, this director, is we have some issues we need to work on to make this maybe transition appropriately, but I think we're headed in the right direction by making it its own unit, its own title.
I very much like the idea of calling out IT in our charter document. I think it's at a point where the department and the function needs to be called out, and I'm a little bit torn in terms of, do we also call out a director of that department in our charter document, or does that in some circumstance in the future tie our hands to something that we may not want to be tied to? But I'm struggling because I can't think of an alternative at this time.
Calling it out on the charter, you're committing yourself to an
To
IT
having a
director.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily committing yourself to the entire staff that's under the IT director, but the question on the table is that an important enough function that serves citywide that we are comfortable with calling it out and committing to it in the charter?
Yeah, I think that's really the question of
I don't see that happening.
throughout the document, we try to focus more on the function where we could, because it gives the city flexibility. Some things that now are done by a person might be better done by an outside service or someone else at a point in time. I am hard pressed to believe the city would ever not want someone, an IT director, who really is acting as the CTO of the city. I mean,
Even if you subcontract it out, everything else, you'd
there's
still need
someone
that.
else
Still
who needs to be
need that.
the adult expert in the room. That's why we don't call out personnel and what their focus is or how many, but I think there always needs to be someone who's that person that talks about the city and technology. I envision no future where that is not critical.
The city's data is like, it's
And all our
an
backup
incredible
data.
asset that
Yeah.
has to be
Yeah, I mean,
secured
so
and
the language I have
managed.
here still has finance, because I think finance we have records for payroll and for a variety of things. But yeah, I think personally, I think IT is here to stay, and I think having someone who is, same way how we do HR, I think we've seen what HR is like when we don't have a person doing it. It is tough to do, and I think IT is similar.
John?
I don't disagree that it needs to be in the charter, but here's what I think. I think we need to be very careful calling out specific directors. I agree with Commissioner Martin, because it seems at this point we have certain things that are being called functions and certain things that are being called directors of a function, and I want to make sure there's a distinction that makes sense. The big concern I have is risk and safety. I want to make sure that risk and safety isn't the only function getting the function-only treatment. That there should be a director of risk and safety if we're going to have a director of HR and a director of IT and a city engineer and all these specific roles called in the charter.
The city engineer we took out of the charter. The risk and safety, which was never previously in the charter, has been included by function only. But the issue is valid on IT. It's in the question. That's the question on the table about whether we want to go in that direction. IT, HR, we did keep in as an administrator of human resources, because it's kind of hard to call out a function that is in a department onto itself without identifying the director of that department. Similarly, if IT is not going to be under any one department, in other words, if we were to keep it in finance, I can at least see the stronger argument in saying, well, then you just call it the functions, not the title, because the functions are arguably the duty of the commissioner whose title that would fall under. If IT is going to be its own title, and give it that sort of independence, then I think I'm more inclined to support calling out the director specifically.
Yeah, I think risk and safety is called out as a function within
Within
a
legal.
separate department.
Right.
I think we have a wonderful risk and safety director at the moment, but I think times change, and I think the function and the usage of risk and safety could evolve over time. So calling someone out and specifically saying what that might be, I think IT, we're saying this person is going to be, I didn't say CTO in here, but that's who this person is. And there's a reason a CTO is a C-level position in organizations around the country, given its importance. So that's why I thought that rose to a certain prominence that made it its own section.
What do you guys think? Mary?
No, I think you want to be consistent, so I'm just taking it in right now. Because I understand what John is saying, I understand what you're saying, but, I mean, what we're trying to do is be consistent across the board so that it makes sense. That's
Mhm.
really what we're changing here is functionality.
Yeah, consistency is key.
Yeah. As far as, I guess it depends on what direction we go in.
Yeah.
Because if IT is its own section, calling out a director would be consistent. There is no standalone section that does not have an individual identified at the top of that section. If it's going to be part of a section or within a section, i.e. finance, then I think for me that's what changes the scope of it. You can call it the function, not the title.
Which is how the language that I propose exists.
Right, that's your first.
That was the XX is.
So I guess
don't say.
the initial question is IT viewed as critical or important enough to warrant it being in its own section?
I don't think there's a city anymore or a private company that doesn't have a CTO that sits at the executive level function.
I'm sorry.
CIOs,
What is it?
Technology officer,
Okay.
Chief Information
All right,
Officer.
thank you.
Oh, either or. No, I've seen CTO and CIO, I've seen them both.
And I'm certainly now, coming over to the thought that we need to have a director of information technology, but I don't know that I'd couch it in terms of because of the importance of the function. I'd couch it, for me, it is an important function that services all of the other departments within the city. And that is the reason why I would be leaning towards having a separate department that is the IT department.
So I happen to be a commissioner that Kevin, go, do what you need to do. He has discussed this with me. He has had other commissioners that have not felt that way. So I am trying to build in a way where this group, which needs to support everybody, police and fire, critical. The secure financial transactions. I'm getting phishing emails on a regular basis now, that, hey, Michelle, it's the mayor, can we meet later and do a wire transfer? I mean, it is crazy the way, it is crazy the way, and it's happening more and more often. And, Kevin's really quick to send out training to every single employee on phishing and cybersecurity issues. What I'm trying to do is put them in a position where they are reporting to the entire council.
I think
And that's a
one of
good point, Peter.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
related to that actually is, I would never want it to have the appearance that a commissioner could put any pressure on the IT function, since it is in their section, to do anything that they might think is not. I think reporting to the council gives them more ability to kind of work for everyone. That's like legal, like HR, and I think removing the appearance of pressure, even if it's never happened, the possibility of it does give me some concern.
All right. Based on that, is everyone comfortable with the creation of another title regarding IT in essentially the form, and we can obviously tweak the language or play with the language, but in the conceptual idea of it, is there a consensus on that? Commissioner, I know you were indicating you're starting to sway in that direction.
I'm becoming more enamored with this language. I can't come up with, sitting at the table here, I can't come up with a tweak that would make it better for me. So.
Okay. If everyone's
You're saying that the IT department would now be in the charter, a separate department?
In the charter, separate department.
The director, similar to what's appointed by,
In this case, it would be appointed by the Commissioner of Finance based on the advice and consent of council, and then answerable to council, serving
and
council.
The director's position would be obviously a description in the charter, or leave that out of
The
the charter.
description would be out, but the title would be in.
Just say that it
Yes.
belongs to the director.
Yes.
That's what-
I mean, the description goes so far as it has to be based on education and experience in IT work, and, which would be up to the council ultimately to appoint, based on the appointment of Commissioner of Finance.
It was a department that for the most part, takes care of all the city departments, plus all the land use.
Oh, yes.
Departments. Every
Yeah.
city function, for the most part,
Mhm.
IT is involved in, so.
Yes,
You know.
and IT works directly with council itself. All the council meetings and all of those functions are IT working not just for one department, but for council.
I
Um,
tend to agree with
The only other thing that I thought, Mike, based on your description, and I was actually going to suggest this for the section in risk and safety, because I did have some conversations with our current director, Marilyn Rivers, on that. And we call them out elsewhere. HR talks about them developing a policy manual that ultimately has to get submitted to council for approval. There's a number of departments, so I was going to come here today with the suggestion that we incorporate something like that into the risk and safety component as well. I think a IT policy and manual that would be submitted to council for approval is also something perhaps worth adding in here.
Similar to 10.1 for HR, which is that personnel
Yes.
manual policy, so something like that, just tweaked appropriately.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
In your second sentence, Mike,
Yep.
on this, below, the administrator, you're referring to the IT director?
Yeah, that's sorry, I thought I
Okay.
caught all of those.
Yeah,
This is truly the language from Human Resources Administrator that I tweaked where I thought appropriate. I also added that second paragraph is similar to language in both DPW and DPS that says once a year,
Mhm.
that director is going to get up in front of the whole council and say, here's what's going on, here's what we're doing. And Kevin does that now, he does a good job of it, but it's not something that he's required to do, and you can see how, that there's value in that, I think, for, especially for departments that maybe don't interact with them as frequently.
I may not transfer it verbatim. I mean, I may,
Yeah,
but
please.
Oh,
don't.
yeah, feel free to edit
Yeah.
it away.